What is ferreting? Get asked that all the while. Well, ferreting is a pursuit of the rabbit with these little fellas, or girls as the case may be. We are using nature to manage nature in possibly the purest form that I know of. We're not using no poisons or toxins, we don't damage the environment, we only enhance the environment. We morph into nature because we're quiet, we're silent, and although there's many guises to go ferreting with a hawk, a lurcher, a gun, I prefer the silent method of using the nets and a good well-trained lurcher. Where do we start? We'll start right at the beginning, when rabbits needed to be harvested, food needed to be put on the table, and people wanted something to enjoy. And you can only imagine what it must have been like to work in the pits, the factories and the fields, and having the luxury of the freedom of going out with a box of ferrets or a bag of ferrets, some nets, and a trusty canine at heel by your side. Although however odd it may look, you will never go hungry. And I always think the ferreter is the epitome of the hunter-gatherer par excellence, because when you look at what we do, we cannot be replaced by a mechanical method or a chemical means. Ferreting is a good way of managing the rabbit population by learning about how to respect your property, your animals. You've got a responsibility. You've got to be mature enough to know when your ferrets have had enough and when the ferrets are ready to start and what warrants to use. You've got to learn about the countryside, the wildlife, the natural world, and you get everything put into one massive fizz bomb of adrenaline and emotions and stress and joy and pressure and excitement. Because when you go on a rabbit warren, you are at one with nature. Just imagine what it's like. You go on ferreting, you're walking up to the rabbit warren, which is one of nature's architectural masterpieces. It's the home of the rabbit. And you have two choices. My preferred method nowadays is to surround it with a long net, put my dog and ferrets in the middle, and then let the ferrets work and change tactics accordingly. A lot of people, they like to put purse nets over every individual hole and stand back. Other methods you could use, you could stand with a weight and gun, you could have a Harris or a goshawk on your hand. There's many ways, but I prefer the quiet, silent method of harvesting meat. The byproduct of ferreting to me is the abundance of organic, free-range, healthy, protein-laden meat. And by using nets and dogs and hawks, you are getting a pristine carcass at the end of the day to either sell on and make some pocket money or feed your animals and the family. And to go ferreting, you can make it as simple or as complicated as you want. I do it on a little bit more of an industrial scale, using hundreds and hundreds of meters of nets and 10, 15, 20 ferrets, or you can have one ferret, no nets, one ferret, half a dozen nets. But it's the enjoyment you get from it. And a lot of people that come out with me on my ferreting days, they get this for the first time. You can't transfer through into a feeling what it's like when you're quiet. You can hear everything going on around you. The birds in the hedge, they're all going mad because they sense a predator amongst their nests. Then you put the ferrets under the ground after you've netted up and you can hear the thumping. You look at your dog and its demeanour changes, its ears stand up on end, and that can signal to you the impending action of the rabbit bolting out. And then it's down to us to humanely, effectively and efficiently dispatch the rabbit, because remember, once that rabbit has been dispatched, it's not a rabbit no more. It's an important source of food and we've got to treat it accordingly. So it goes on the game carrier. It's hung up in the shade, paunched as quickly as we can do it. And then the ferrets are busy working around, and then when the rabbits have come out, we fill the holes in and then we move on to the next warren. The reason we fill the holes in is at a glance, we can see if we've left any rabbits behind, and there's a hole appeared, but no earth, because obviously the spill is on the inside. 9 times out of 10, it's rabbits trying to get it back in, and you will see the spoil of earth on the outside. And it's these little sights that become second nature to you, which amazes people how at home and attuned we are with what we're doing. You instinctively know what the ferrets are up to by looking at them sense, looking at the body language. Is it proactive? Is it reactive? And the dog's the same. And the reason why ferreting is a viable and cost-effective method of rabbit control is because we don't use poisons or toxins. We are discriminate. We're not indiscriminate like a gas that can curtail the life of anything that's living under the ground, be it a hedgehog, be it a bird, be it all the invertebrates, be it all the protected species. All we get, and all the ferrets are after, is the rabbits. And when we fill that hole in and move on, the only way you know there's been a ferret there is the grasses start to grow. A few different plants appear at the hedgerow bottom because they're not being chewed off by the rabbits that were localised in that area. But it's not going to last forever because Mother Nature hates a vacuum. And as soon as you manage one area, another area will come in. It will see there's no dominant rabbits to keep them away, and there's a nice hotel there with plenty of food on the table, and they'll make the most of it. So it's a management structure throughout the year. And this is why we tend to do it more from September through till March, because we can actually physically see the warrens because the undergrowth is lowest. The rabbits are in fine fettle, and there doesn't tend to be a lot of youngsters around. And that's why the season for the majority of sporting ferreters will stop in February. The sign of the youngsters, they're leaving the stock breed for next year, and they're going to carry on. Unfortunately, it's how I make my living, and the person who's paying my wage tells me where and when I do my rabbit management. But it is about management. No matter how hard we go at an area, you're not going to wipe them out. We don't want to wipe them out. We just want them down to a realistic and economic level. Why does it have to be a realistic and economic level? Well, if you look at the hundreds of £1 million worth of damage the rabbit causes every year, not just to farms, agriculture, horticulture, and monetary value is irrelevant when it comes down to stress it involves. If you've got a little garden with one rabbit and it's eating up all your plants, it's going to start doing your head in. You've got to stress out about it. So it's not just monetary trouble that we're trying to manage, it's the stressful situations as well. And by using the ferrets and the dogs and the nets, we can do it quietly. Nobody knows we're there. And that's one of the beauties I like about ferreting. But without good ferrets, we're not going to be as good as what we want to be. So a lot of time has got to go into breeding your ferrets, getting the right strain. When you're going to breed from them, make sure you're picking from the right animals, not just one that looks pretty, but that actually does. Because there's two things you want in a good working ferret. It needs good social skills, which means you can handle it and it's going to be soft and it's going to be pliable, and it needs a prey drive. And a prey drive, sadly, is the one thing what tells the difference between all these predatory species that have been domesticated, because without a good prey drive, it's only going to run through the motions. They come in an array of colours, from the dark polecat through to the albino and in between, but to me, it's light or dark, and I favour the light ferrets. Why? Because I like to let my ferrets roam a warren and use their senses to pick up on the rabbits, and I can see where they are. And if you can see where your ferrets are moving, then you're going to be relaxed. And this is why I like the mindset of the ferreter, the mindset of a hunter, the mindset of a predator, because it's not black and white. There's no rule book to what we do. Each individual around the country hones what they do to the terrain and topography of what they're ferreting. So what works for me here in the north isn't going to work for me in the south or the east or the west. The moor, the hillside, the beach, the verges along a rape field, at the bottom of a wheat valley. It's all different. So some of us use like the purse nets, as we described, long nets, guns, whatever. But at the end of the day, it's about the enjoyment you get, whether you're doing it 7 days a week or 1 day a year. Because at the end of the day, if you don't enjoy what you're doing, you're not going to do it to the best of your ability. And one of the saving graces of when I go ferreting, what really cheers me up, and there's not so much a saving grace, it's one of the benefits. It's almost therapeutic to be out there, and you switch your phone off. You've got no technology with you other than your ferret finders, and you can just lose yourself in the day by steadily going through the rabbit warrens, doing a very important and essential job, but also enjoying yourself and getting some food for the table. And the rise of people eating rabbit has been quite staggering over the last 4 or 5 years, because people are now realising it's not what they remember, or it's not what their parents told them about. This is a nutritious, tasty meat, when cooked correctly and presented correctly, can match any animal that we have on our island with protein and fats and calories. So in the circle of ferreting, it's a win-win situation because people like us because we're quiet and we don't use poisons and we're the countryside's friends and we're going to feed you as well. So if that's not the epitome of the hunter-gatherer, please tell me what is.